Usually when I set up in the past, I would set up like this. Like I would be all neutral, shoulders open, and trying to figure everything out. My alignment isn't very good because of all these flaws.
Your hips are sitting a bit back at your setup. So this hip center being behind the ankle. So anytime your hips are back, that would be correlated with the weight being on your heels, right? So the problem with your hips being back is anytime your hips are too far back, you're gonna want to counterbalance. You're not gonna go more back, right? You're gonna go forward.
Early extension.
Early extension. Is if you set up to like a wall here, I wanna be able to get down to the ball without my hips pushing back into the wall. So that gives you a measurement of like how far back.
Okay.
So I would go like knees, I would round down from the top and be here like this. Now in swing, you can feel like that right hip pushes back a little during your backswing and the left hip pushes back a little on the way through. The opposite of the forward motion. Perfect, perfect. All right, guys, so it's time for another live lesson, this time with Nick. Now, Nick came in wanting to really fix his early extension, and you're gonna see in this video a little bit more analytical and a deep dive into why he gets his early extension. We're really going through that initial phase where I'm kind of showing him what's going on and why, the analysis part. And we're gonna show you a lot of how the setup relates to the early extension. And getting the setup right is so important. I had setup issues that led to early extension for like a decade and never knew about it. So that's the point of these live lessons. So you can see things that you can get better faster and avoid some of the mistakes. So with Nick, we're gonna go through that analysis. I'm gonna show you how I would fix the setup pieces, and we're starting the process. This is day one for him of starting the process of the movement change. Obviously, as we would go, there would be more swings, more hitting the ball, but first things first, how do I need to set up? How do I need to start to feel it? And hopefully you can take this and help fix your early extension by getting your setup correct as well. Let's go ahead and take a look. So if we just look at your swing pattern here, your setup pieces are pretty good. Now your left hand grip is a little bit weak, turned counterclockwise from the player perspective relative to your right hand grip. So the V of your right hand was over here by this shoulder, which I like. Somewhere between the collarbone and the shoulder would be perfect.
Right.
Now you see your left hand V is up here by kind of your left ear. Now all things equal, I would prefer that to be more parallel, which is like over here by your collarbone. So a left hand grip that's weak just means you have to be really good with your wrist angles. It's not incorrect. There's several guys in the top 5 of the world who have weak grips. It's not wrong. It's like a variation of technique that you just have to pair things with.
Sure.
So of your setup pieces, that would be the only thing of note. We could potentially have your handle a touch more forward. There's a little bit of work to do with your balance points on the right hand side. So if I look at this here, so let's look at, So if I look at this here, your hips are sitting a bit back at your setup. So this hip center being behind the ankle. So anytime your hips are back, that would be correlated with the weight being on your heels, right? So the problem with your hips being back is anytime your hips are too far back, you're gonna wanna counterbalance. You're not gonna go more back, right? You're gonna go forward.
Early extension.
Early extension. So the first thing we see here that could lead to your early extension would be the hips being too far back at setup. Let's just monitor that and see your hip depth. Yeah, so you see your hips are coming forward the whole time. So that hips coming forward the whole time is your body just balancing, is trying to find balance.
Okay.
Because your hips are back, this hip, I would say center of the hip over the center of the ankle would be more where we want. So we got to pull those hips a little bit more forward.
Okay.
If your hips are the most underneath you, right, then like all I would want to do is create space. Does that make sense, just conceptually?
Right.
If they're so far back and I have nowhere to go, I have nowhere to go but in.
Okay.
So a lot of your early extension losing hip depth is from that. Now, early extension, if my hips are back and then they're going in towards the ball, that's also going to change this body angle to the ground.
Thin shots.
There you go.
Yep.
So if I'm changing my torso angle to the ground, my inclination to the ground, I then have to change my wrist angles just to hit the ball, right? So if I get farther, and this is for me to the, someone watching just as much as me and you, if my torso gets farther from the ground, to just get to the ground, I have to throw my wrist angles.
Which is why I lose that.
There you go.
I got you.
And it's right arm and wrist, right? So you got to lengthen the right arm and right wrist just to get to the torso. Now, conversely, if you were like really bent over and you were really low here, then I would need to have my right arm and right wrist the most bent. That'd be like a Victor Hovland
Right.
sort of guy, right?
Right.
So that all can be traced back to your setup. It's kind of crazy, right? With the hips being, which you get and can understand and appreciate that.
Right.
But when I first started going, I was like, what? Like my hips being so far back leads to all that shit? But literally just having your hips back. You know, when you're practicing, you want to be able to draw the line down your hip here and just never go off it.
Right.
Right, so if we had, we'll just use him again. Cameron Champ, all of a sudden is like our swing model. If we look at him here, and I draw a line down the butt.
Right.
So let's see if you can see you compared to him here. So even there, I mean, if you kind of take all the lines out of the way, you can see how his hips are more underneath him versus yours are sitting too far back. You see that?
Yep.
So see his kneecaps are over the balls of his foot?
I can see it in his legs. Like I have mine's more straight-legged than his.
Bingo. So you're kind of preset. You're kind of preset RDL, right? So now what should happen is he should stay here. The whole point of keeping the hip depth is to keep the inclination to the ground. So he actually creates a little bit of space.
Right.
That's partially because of the distance he stands away from the ball. It's a different conversation. But he creates a little space, and then look at him creating space there. Right? So that would be perfect. And the whole reason that's important is just to keep this.
Right.
So we're turning, tilting, extending without changing our distance away from the ground. And then you can see the difference of him through the hip. Go ahead and stand straight up and down for me. So if you just stood straight up and down, and this is like how far back for the hips. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested, we can talk at a later date about what you do to train too, but for golf specific purposes, I like to see the center of the hips over the center of the ankle. So like what we want to avoid is almost like a deadlift sort of posture would be bad for us.
Okay.
For us, because what you do once you're in a deadlift is you got to come out of a deadlift.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? So with the side bend and rotation pieces I would prefer, if I just stood up like this, the knees should be bent about over the balls of the feet, like edge of the shoelaces. And then I would like to see your hips push back as little as humanly possible as your upper torso, your spine rounds over is essentially what we're looking for. So I don't want a ton of bend from the hips. See what I'm saying? A little more knee bend. Yeah, a little more knee bend. So like that would be like stand straight up and down again. Bend your knees a little bit. You do it again. So bend your knees without pushing your butt back.
That's the problem.
Yeah, right. Can you do that? Yeah.
Right here.
So now from there, you would round down without pushing your butt back. Yeah, you feel that?
Yep.
Yeah. So that sort of posture, which to you compared to what you're used to doing, is going to feel like sloppy and kind of weird. Mm-hmm. But when we look at it on video, it's going to be perfect. Let's do that one more time. So how you would do this first, yeah, there you go, good. Now without your butt going back, round down to the ball. So it's like all this is rounded over.
Okay. There
you go, perfect. So that sort of positioning there is now gonna have your hips much more underneath you. You should feel like the pressure's more like on the balls of your feet.
Yes.
So not middle, not toes,
right?
But let's say ball of the foot there. Hips are more under. Again, like what you want to avoid is any sort of like round, give me like anterior pelvic tilt, like round your butt back. Yes, like that would be the worst case scenario for this. Posture go under, that would be better, if anything.
Okay.
So your pelvis can be neutral to like slightly rounded under.
Okay.
With me on that?
Yep.
So now you're in a position where, like, where does it feel like your hips don't want to go in swing is forward.
Right.
It's almost like I got to go back from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point. I used to have early extension. I would like keep pushing my hip back at the setup.
That's what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens? Hips keep going in and in and in and in. So it's until you're under. If you look at like Ben Hogan and like a lot of the old school guys, they look like sloppy. Like they're like, man, that posture sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of them at impact have their hips back and turned. Yeah, exactly. You can relax your shoulders. But this all should feel rounded. Your hips should feel underneath you, pressing the balls of your feet. And now it should feel like, okay, now I can create space on the way down. Now I can create space.
Right.
Versus being back. So what I like to do for that, to learn that, if we had a wall, is if you set up to like a wall here and about a fist away from it, which we could use your bag for, I want to be able to get down to the ball without my hips pushing back into the wall. So that gives you a measurement of like how far back.
Okay.
So I would go like knees, I would round down from the top and be here like this. So my butt's still off the wall.
Okay.
And then I can get into the wall in terms of the hip depth.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of, for you,
it's the opposite.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
So let's do that again. Let's do your setup pieces with that.
Here.
Yeah.
And there.
In fact, come back to the wall for a second, just to feel. I'll take your club from you. So go about 1 fist away.
Here.
Yeah, good. So pressure's in the middle of your feet. Yeah, take your setup again. Go a little bit farther. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right about a little bit more. There you go. That's about good. So if you stood up right from there, bend, and you can bend your knees and round down, your butt shouldn't get to the wall. So that should feel like your hips are more underneath you.
Right, I'm getting this problem.
You want to go back, yeah. Which is probably you train all the time, right?
Yeah,
It's like you're normal.
RDLs.
Right.
Remaining deadlift.
Yeah. So it's just like the opposite of what your normal motion is.
So I'm here.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So it's all this like flexion of the spine up here, this middle thoracic and above.
Right.
That's perfect. And you definitely should feel like the pressure's more on the balls of your feet
Yeah,
compared to
I
normal.
feel that right here.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Now from that space, do that one more time. Now in swing, you can feel like that right hip pushes back a little during your backswing, and the left hip pushes back a little on the way through. The opposite of the forward motion.
Right.
So if I'm starting like this distance away, when you get done, I'm very close to the object.
Right.
What you do when you train is then pull the object up to you. So if it's like a chair or a bag, pull it to you so you're touching it.
Yeah.
Because in a swing, all we want to do is have your hips stay on the wall that you start with. So now it's I'm in my good posture, but it's on me. So now my right hip and butt should push into it, both hips. And then the key in the follow through is you don't push the like the butt back into it. You push the seam line.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the pocket type.
Pocket's great.
Yep.
I used to always do it when I first learned it, like going like this. And I'm like, man, I'm stuck. Like, because we shouldn't be in flexion like that. I should be extending as I'm doing it with turn.
Right.
So just as you're practicing that, you could do that even at whenever.
Yep.
Is that just have a wall behind you.
Right.
So now you should feel like that right hip pushes back into it, just like a little takeaway.
Yep.
There you go. Yep. And then as you start to swing through, that left hip is going to push on it. And now kick your pelvis up towards the target, so you can fully extend. Let yourself stand up out of it. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Good. Good. Now from there, push the weight off your right foot. Turn. Yeah, there you go. So you should be able to still extend up and out of that
Right.
while that seam line's on there.
Right.
So what I don't want you to do is get stuck in like here,
Okay.
right? So as I'm working through, my hip should still be
Gotcha.
doing the extension. I'm just turning as I'm doing that.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. There you go. Perfect. So you keep pushing your hips forward. So when you get done, if this were my follow through, when I get done, my belt buckle and hips aren't still in the middle of my feet. My belt buckle's fully pushed forward. Yes. Yeah. Well, we know what this video is going to be about. Good. Yeah. Push off that foot. Yes. Yeah. So you still got to get through it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You get.
Because when we want to like keep the hip depth, it's very easy to just like get lost in this flexion. Yeah, you still got to do the extension part. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Yep. Yeah. Beautiful. Yep. Yes. You should feel like you're starting more on the balls of your feet.
Yep.
But, and I'm glad you said that, I do still want you to get to your right heel on the way back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I still want you to get to the heel as the hip pushes back.
Okay.
And then you should go from your right heel kind of back to the middle of the feet into the left heel. So it should start in the balls of your feet.
Okay. So I'm going down. This feels totally weird to me.
Yeah.
Right. This feels all right, but I feel everything right here.
So feel the pressure more forward.
Yep.
Got it.
Right towards the balls of my feet.
Perfect.
Here. Now I feel this weight throughout my entire foot. So I'm getting here, some here, like I feel my foot gripping the ground.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when I get back and rotate, now everything's like, I feel this toe coming up
Yep.
and pressure getting here and trying to fully rotate.
Perfect.